Everybody, ECBA 406, Lesson 5 recap, Lesson 6 preview, coming to you today from the Miller Tree Inn Bed and Breakfast in Forks, Washington. As you recall from last week, I talked to you a little bit about Forks and La Push and the Twilight book and film series. And so what I wanted to do today is give you a little bit of an introduction to that from my wife Jill, who's here. Jill does work for our company here in Washington State and some other parts of the U.S. called inn sitting. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to a bed and breakfast or a small country inn that the owners had served you and all the other things like that, but you ever wonder what happens if they want to go on vacation or if they want to leave town? Well, do they just close down? Or do they do something else? Well, many of the innkeepers that we know hire what are called inn sitters. And Jill is an inn-sitter for our company, and what she does is she comes in and she actually runs the property as if she were the owner. So she will serve breakfast, she'll check guests in, she'll manage the staff, she'll take reservations and all of those things. And so Jill's been coming out here to the Forks area for about 10 years, and I thought she is the foremost expert on the Twilight series from my family. So, Jill?
Okay, first, there's a disclaimer. I have to know about Twilight because I probably spend 8 weeks out of the year out here working, and so consequently, I have to know. The Middle Tree Inn has been called the Cullen House, dubbed the Cullen House, so I have to know about Twilight. Just wanted to clarify that I'm not just a huge fan.
Team Edward.
Yeah, I don't have a team. Anyway, it's frightening to me that he even knows about that. But he spent too much time out here. So moving on, I've been coming to Forks for about 10 years. I do inspections here as well as this kind of work, and I've seen a big change in not just Forks the town, but in this business too, in those 10 years. The Twilight series are just a wildly popular book for tweens, teenagers, and their moms. And with the advent of those books, people started to come to Forks. And of course, once the movie came out, people really wanted to come to Forks. And as they made more movies, it became more popular. Initially, when they first decided to film, they were going to come to Forks. And Forks was so excited. They built infrastructure. The businesses started to kind of clean up things and make it nice, getting ready for filming. But Washington State made it prohibitively expensive to film here. Because of that, there isn't 1 inch of film shot in Forks. It's all shot in Vancouver, BC, or down in Portland, Oregon. Now here's Forks, ready to go, all excited about filming of these wildly popular books that are now going to be movies, and they aren't coming. So I think they really made, lemonade out of lemons. What they did is they got together and they said, well, we have people coming to Forks because they want to see Twilight. So we're going to give them Twilight. They got together and they actually decided this would be the Cullen House. And if you've read the books or seen the movie, the Cullen House is a centerpiece of the activity. So this is the only large white farmhouse with a wraparound porch anywhere in Forks. So it got to be the Cullen House. That means it's really, really a popular place for Twilight fans to go. The business here has, I don't have a figure, but they've become very, very popular because of that. What I've seen is this small business owner has really taken a lot of what he's earned in the last 10 years and pumped it back into this business. I've been able to see how he's added rooms, upgraded rooms, and changed things and made it even nicer than it was before. So he's used this to build his business. I think, too, the town of Forks has been very wise. This is my opinion, and I say that because I don't want you to cite me, because it's my opinion, and you know how he feels about opinions. And
Supported
no,
opinion.
it's not a supported opinion, it's my opinion. But I think Forks has done a very good job on taking the money they've earned as a town and investing it back into their future. What I see in the change in the guest base here, there are less Twilight people, but many, many more guests from all over the world who are coming here to visit the Olympic National Park. They want to visit the beaches, they want to take the hikes and do the outdoor activities, go to the Hoh Rainforest. And I think that's because Forks has done a very good job of advertising themselves as that centerpiece of this national park.
Cool. Well, before you go, I don't know if you can see this or not, but right behind me, looks like there's this big picture frame with a bunch of mortar boards from graduation. What's the story with that?
Well, for those of you who know about vampires, they don't age. And so this is the Cullen house. And Dr. Cullen and his wife had 4 kids. They weren't really their kids. They were just younger vampires who stayed that age forever. So when they would move to a town, the kids had to go to school. They were like high school, college age. So they would go to school for 4 years. They would graduate. They would get a cap. And then once they'd all graduated, they had to move because they didn't age. So they kept going town to town, attending high school, which is kind of like a nightmare, but anyway.
Can you imagine taking this class over and over and over and over again? Don't answer that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, well, it's been fun being out here and seeing what can happen when a community. And again, as you've heard me say before, I love small businesses because they are the people who are really going for it. And so it's great to see how they can take opportunities and leverage them for the long term. And that is really one of the key things as you begin to look at businesses today is how can they make their business sustainable over the years. And so this is the prime example of this, not only this community, but this business here at Miller Tree doing that and leveraging the future and not just being content with where they are. So enough of that. Let's talk about lesson 5 recap. Lesson 5 really talked about how can you change corporate culture and how what are the challenges that exist with corporate culture. And in today's environment where you have companies that buy out other companies or companies that merge or brand new companies that are growing, corporate cultures are very well defined. But then if you have two cultures that mix from an acquisition, then it becomes sometimes, you can have clashes in that. And many times the organization will take on the culture of the leader of that organization. So the primary leader, if you think about American Airlines and US Airways coming together, well, they're called American Airlines now in the new organization, but the old CEO of US Airways is now the CEO over the total company. So you have a real challenge there because you've got American Airlines culture and you have US Airways culture all being merged together. And so that can and usually is a challenge. It's not something that you can't work through, but it's something that is as I mentioned, is a challenge. I hate to overuse that word. The assignment question, one of the assignment questions this week really focused on the difference between internal and external hiring. And so I wanted you to take a look at this, not just again from the employee perspective, but look at it from the business leader's perspective. And many times, what I would look at on whether or not I would hire from the outside. First of all, I always looked inside. I always looked if there was someone in the organization who could meet the criteria for that position. Well, many times, however, you're not hiring for the next position that's open. You're hiring for 3 or 4 positions down the road. And so if you're hiring someone who's high potential, who has the potential to move not only to that position, but for 3 or 4 or 5 positions ahead of that, then that will create a different dynamic for you. And while you would like to hire someone internal, many times you just can't simply block up those positions by hiring someone who's going to be there for 30 years. And so you don't create any further movement in the company. And so that's one of the challenges that you have in the whole internal external debate is, are you creating pass-through opportunities for people? And again, the most qualified person existing may be someone who's internal, but if that next level is as far as they can go in the organization, then that's another consideration that you have to have. And so there are many other dynamics to this than simply taking a general step that says we will always hire internally. Well, that's a bad process to have, I believe, simply because it doesn't give you the right flexibility in moving the organization forward. So many different topics on that one. Then in the course project this week, we talked about all things HR. What are the key things in developing this training program? What are you looking for? What are the key characteristics? And so not only from a hiring perspective, but from a development perspective and a retention perspective. And so those are all key things that I will be looking for in your comments in your training program from lesson 5 submission. All right, let's move to lesson 6. Lesson 6 talks about, and I really like this discussion question because it hopefully will get some thinking processes started that talks about control versus creativity. Again, if you have an organization that has very tight controls, then perhaps that organization is not likely to be as creative because they have so many walls that they put up and so many different barricades that they put up that creativity is just not valued. Versus perhaps some technology companies these days who really focus on creativity, innovation, but then they forget to run the day-to-day business. And so there are some conflicts that are created in the control versus creativity environment. And that's what that assignment question is going to be all about. I mean, that discussion question is going to be all about. And then the first assignment question in lesson 6 talks about control systems. Well, control systems are put in place for the main purpose of risk management. And in today's environment, risk management is key. You have departments related to risk management. And you think about that based upon what business you're in. Quality assurance and different types of testing and those types of things are all part of risk management. But risk management just doesn't have to be focused on on projects and on products. It can be focused on the process. It can be focused on logistics. It can be focused on hiring practices and those types of things. And so that assignment question this week really focuses on the use of control systems to help organizations manage risk as you go forward. And then finally, the addition this week for the course project is all things finance. This is the one that students have the most problems with because, again, accounting and financial statements and balance sheets aren't the things that people say, oh, gee, I want to see more of those. But it's incredibly, incredibly important. I tell people today that if you are up for a position in management in the future, and you have a working knowledge of financial statements, balance sheets, then you have a leg up against the person who does not. And so don't fight it. I mean, find ways to understand not only what they're used for, but how you can interpret them in going forward. And so as you begin to put together the financial component of your course project this week, make sure you don't give me the surface things. Many times I have people who will look and go, the company's in great financial shape. And I'm going, really? I mean, if you look at their financial statements, if you look at the way that analysts cover them, if you look at their growth over the last few years, then perhaps they're not. Just because a company, hear me on this, just because a company makes money does not mean they're financially in good shape. Okay? Because stock prices today aren't based on current value, they're based on future value. And so if a company's not growing their profits at an acceptable rate, you notice I said not making a profit, but growing their profits. Okay? So you need to be growing your profits in order to be considered in good shape today from a financial perspective. So don't be general in this. Make sure that you're very specific. A great place to find financial information about the company that you've selected is go to their website, look at investor information. You'll find their annual reports, or you'll find their 10Ks or different things like that to look at historical data from a financial perspective. Also go to online and find companies that review, like Moody's and S&P. They'll review the financial capabilities of a company going forward. Okay. Well, I hope this was entertaining and helpful and that you had a good time listening to these things this week. Have a great week. If you need me, call me. Study hard. Talk to you soon.